Hello, welcome to our very first episode here on Chat TPK. It's so fantastic to have you joining us here on Spotify. We're going to be releasing a weekly podcast every Monday. We are also looking to try and put it onto a video podcast as well. So if you're listening to us now, you look out for us on YouTube and also on Twitch, and we hopefully will be appearing on your screen very, very soon. So this being episode 1, I will introduce myself. My name is Mike. I'm going to be the host of your podcasts going forward. But whilst I am a jack of all trades in terms of different things about, in terms of like D&D and all things geek culture, I will require some expert advice to help me be guided through the discussions that we're going to be having. So with that said, I'm going to introduce to you our first guest for today, who's going to provide us some insight on our main topic, which is spells, the ones we love and the ones we hate. Our first guest is going to be Martyn. So good afternoon, Martyn. Welcome. How are you doing, my friend?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. You're good. Well, hopefully this will be the first of many times which we have you, Martyn. So just straight off on the off, I've only known you for what? Probably less than a year, actually, but we've been playing D&D for a while.
Sounds about right.
And alongside you and our other guest, you're probably two of the most knowledgeable D&D players that I know. So I definitely wanted to pick your brains. But yeah, Martyn, what's your experience and level of knowledge in D&D? Would you say?
So for me, I am kind of your stereotypical nerd. That took me down a D&D rabbit hole. I'd say maybe about 7 or 8 years ago now when I first started playing, and for the last 4 or 5 years I've been running games, DMing games as well, and a lot of my spare time really just goes into reading things, creating a lot of homebrew spells, classes, things like that. So a lot of the inspiration that I draw for those creations obviously comes from the existing stuff, as well as running games, having a good understanding of what the players are trying to do and what their spells can achieve. I also love playing. So as you know, I play in a game with yourself, and knowing what my spells can do takes up like half of the game, really, for me. I don't know whether I'd call myself an expert, to be honest, Mike, but who can ever really call ourselves an expert?
To be fair, definitely. Whenever we are playing, I always look to probably you and also our other guest who will introduce very shortly for clarification more than anything, because you are not a rules lawyer, but you know the rules, and that always helps. So yeah, we'll be definitely sure to lean on you on today's discussion. And I think it's probably time to go say hello to our other guest, who equally is as fantastic and probably plays one of the creepiest, but also one of the most fantastic characters that I have had the opportunity of playing alongside. And that is Rick. Good afternoon, Rick. How are you doing, my friend?
Good afternoon, Mike. I'm well, thank you. And to you, Martyn, as well. Thank you both for having me.
No problem at all. It's good to have you. So what would you say, Rick, is the thing that probably has drawn you to D&D rather than, other hobbies?
Well, I got into D&D in high school, so age 14, 15, and I did what I think a lot of people do, and I went, I've turned 18, we're going to start having some drinks, it's not very cool to be playing D&D, and I put it to one side for about 7, 8 years. I picked it back up again mid-20s when I decided that I didn't care what people thought of me anymore, and I've been playing since. Branched out a little bit as well. Done some Dungeon World. Done some Powered by the Apocalypse.
Would you say, Rick, there's a bit of a stigma attached to D&D? Everyone just thinks that people who play it tend to be a certain type of person. When actually it's become a lot more mainstream now, isn't it? So
it certainly used to come with the dork moniker, but I think now it is a little bit more mainstream. They've got a film, they've got Stranger Things. People are looking more into it. Baldur's Gate 3 was a massive hit.
a fantastic hit, which I'm sure we will be looking into in future episodes. But yes, Baldur's Gate 3, fantastic game. Okay, well, it's wonderful to have you both. We'll obviously be having you on the podcast lots and lots because you are, as I say, extremely knowledgeable. But let's crack on with our first main topic today, which is going to be looking at the best and the worst, our favourite and least favourite spells within D&D 5e. We're drawing upon spells that are in official. Are we going to say official texts? Yeah,
the sacred texts.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so there obviously are tons of homebrews, and I think that is an episode we can delve into one day, looking at people's interesting homebrew monstrosities. But let's focus on what is actually available on like D&D Beyond and other sources. So I think I'll start us off. We're going to look at our worst spells first, and we'll have a little discussion as to why. And then I think we'll have a look at our best. So, my very first spell that I would like to discuss and bring to the forum today, you might agree, Mordekainen's Sword.
Yeah.
I don't really understand the point of it, because you've got something like Spiritual Weapon, for instance, which is, a second level spell?
Mm-hmm.
And Mordekainen's Sword, I believe, let me just get it up in front of me, it's a 7th level spell. And it only does marginally more damage than a spiritual weapon. Could one of you explain to me what is the point of it? Really, it's concentration as well.
I don't know if I can. I was about to add. Its concentration does 3d10 force damage for a 7th level. If you upcast Spirit Guardians, I think that adds 1d8 every 2 levels.
Yeah. So marginally more, potentially more damage than Spirit Guardians. It's obviously for a bard and a wizard, and I think a Spirit Guardians is a cleric spell, isn't it? So I guess it does give them something.
But if you really want to do that as a bard, use one of your magical secrets to take Spiritual Weapon and upcast it.
Yeah, there's other ways to get spells that do the same thing better.
Yeah.
Like that, in every instance for me, loses out to a spiritual weapon. Every single instance. The concentration, for one, you've got better things to be concentrating on by the time you're 7th level spell for a wizard's level 13 or something.
Yeah.
By then, you've got much better things to be concentrating on than a knockoff spiritual weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Concentration is definitely quite a lot of spells actually require it, so it's something you kind of really want to be careful of choosing when you select your spell list.
Not only that, it's got a monetary classified material component as well, which I know material components are quite often the most hand-waved thing in D&D, but it's just not worth it. Everything that you tick off with it is a tick on the cons list rather than the pros list.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something I've never actually I've had the opportunity of using and never really ever wanted to. I don't really see the point to it when there are much better options available. And as we say, the concentration is, I think, the nail in that spell's coffin. To be honest, I could see some use for it if it didn't have concentration potentially. But Martyn, would you like to tell us one of your worst spells in D&D?
So I've got a few, and I'm a relatively pedantic person in real life, probably goes along with that near rules lawyer classification that we give ourselves here. So a lot of the things that I think of as bad spells are ones where the naming convention doesn't fit what the spell does. Some of them...
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, some of them actually happen to be absolutely garbage spells as well. So my absolute top of the useless spells is one called Find Traps, which is a 2nd level spell that doesn't find traps, basically. So what it does is it allows you to sense the presence of a trap within a cone out in front of you, and instead of going, yes, there is a trap and it is exactly here, all it does is allow you to have a general understanding that something in front of you is maybe going to hurt you, but only if it's something that has been kind of set there. So like a glyph of warding, for example, wouldn't let you know that you are going to fall through the floor because the floor's weak or something like that. And because it doesn't tell you where this trap is, just that, yes, there is a trap,
ultimately
someone's still going to have to do an investigation or active perception check to find it anyway. So you've just wasted a second level spell slot for someone to do exactly what they would have done if you hadn't used that spell slot anyway.
I think also with this spell, it's a resource that you're spending that a DM worth their salt would definitely hint at anyway. So say there was a blade trap, there'd be bits in the walls or scuffs on the floor or something. If you're just looking at an empty corridor, you cast find traps and they say yes, then you've gained no more information because you don't know what to avoid. And it also specifically says it doesn't reveal natural weaknesses in the floor, unstable ceilings, or hidden sinkholes. So if you cast it in the jungle,
quite a common trap, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. So that one, because it does not do what it says it does.
It's not the Ron seal of spells, is it?
It's not.
Okay, fair play. There are other types of wood sealant available. So thank you, Martyn. We'll put that into the room 101 of spells for sure. Rick, one of your worst spells, please.
One of mine, Compelled Duel. Similar reasons. Doesn't do what you think it's going to do. Well, it does, but the wrong way round. It compels you to duel them, but does not compel them to duel you.
So what's the point of it then, Rick? What's the main reason for using this terrible spell?
I assume the intention of it is to make it more attractive to attack you, because it gives them disadvantage to attack anyone else while they're within 30 feet of you. But if they pass a wisdom saving throw, they can move 30 feet away from you. If you move 30 feet away from them, the spell ends. If you attack anyone else, the spell ends. And if you cast a spell on another creature, the spell ends. But they're under no such compulsion. So.
And what spell list is this from? Is this a warlock one or
it's a paladin
or a bard one? It's a paladin. Okay, so paladins tend to be quite up close, don't they? So they want to kind of stick near the target. But what level spell is this one?
It's first level.
I agree. It's not a good spell. When I think about Compelled Duel, especially when you think about it's a paladin spell, it feels very flavoursome, if that's the right word. It's very much knight in shining armour, fight me, not anyone else kind of spell. But it's just not great. It's the equivalent of like an aggro kind of spell that just doesn't do it very well.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, but just doesn't do it great.
So it has some role play value potentially, but mechanically speaking, it's just a bit of a dud.
Well, I think you would look at that spell as a paladin and go, yes, I'm taking this spell just from the title of it, and then you try and use it in game, and you cast it on an enemy wizard, and they go, haha, nice try. Yeah. Here's a fireball for all your friends, which isn't an attack roll.
That's slightly underwhelming, yeah. Fair play. Okay, so that's good. That's interesting to know. Compelled Duel, stay away from if you're a paladin. Right, another one of my worst ones is probably Witch Bolt, which is also another first level spell. Again, it's concentration. So again, at an early level, you don't have that many concentration spells, so it's not a big trade-off at an early level in terms of a spellcaster. But I feel after 3 or 4 levels, it can be very quickly out-damaged by something like Firebolt. The fact that you have to then use... Is it another action to redo the damage, the 1d12? So yeah, you cast it, it gets to make a saving throw, doesn't it? It gets to make a... it gets to make a saving throw, and obviously...
You just hit them.
Apologies. On a hit.
The kicker on this spell is that you look at it and you're like, this looks great. And like you say, at low levels, sure it is. The fact that it's concentration, but if you don't use your action to do it, the spell ends. So if you do
use it
anything else with your action after you've started concentration, it's just going to stop anyway.
That is very. That's quite frustrating.
It's not a rider on any other damaging concentration spells. So back to spiritual weapon. not a rider on now. You can ignore your spiritual weapon for 2 or 3 turns and then move it and attack with it. You can keep your firewall up, or I'm trying to think of another first level damaging spell that lasts for more than 1 turn, and I can't.
I mean, it just compare it to something like Firebolt, for instance, which is a cantrip, free use as much as you want. So it's not using spell slots, it's not concentration. As you level up, obviously that goes from 1d10 to 2d10 and so on in higher levels. I just don't think the extra potential 2 points of damage makes it worth a spell slot. It's still an action, so yeah, I'm just confused as to. If you have access to something like Firebolt, there's no point really investing a spell slot in this spell, for instance. There are much better options.
Take Tasha's Caustic Brew instead.
Not a bad choice. Thinking, obviously, it's on the Warlock and Wizard, and I think Sorcerer spell list. But then they all get decent cantrips to use, and just one for me that I don't really get its place within the game. It gets easily outmatched and outpowered after level 3 or 4. So
I suppose the only way, in my opinion, that you could make this reasonably valid, and even then, there's many things that would come over it, is, for example, if you played V-Human, Tempest Cleric, so that you were with that, because you can guarantee max damage on lightning spells when you're a Tempest Cleric. So that's a guaranteed number every time, because obviously the dice giveth and the dice taketh away. If you're rolling 1s and 2s on that d12, it's never going to feel great. Whereas if you can just go 12, 12, 12, like consistently every round, it could be reasonable. But again, there's better feats to take than the one of the adept ones that's going to give you access to this spell in the first place. So are you going to do it? It's quite niche. I think it's always the sign of a bad spell if you have to do legwork to justify its use.
To try and fit it in, yeah. And I mean, but by the time that you're investing in feats and stuff, and you can potentially get Lightning Bolt down the line. That's probably a lot
Call
better,
Lightning.
So. Call Lightning, yeah, exactly.
Call Lightning is the big boy version of Witch Bolt, and it's amazing.
It's better, and that's area effect as well, isn't it? So yeah. Much better. Oh, there you go. So, Witch Bolt, it sucks, in my opinion. Fantastic. Martyn, second worst one.
So, following on from the pattern from the last one, this is one where the name frustrates me because it doesn't do what it says on the tin, and this spell is called Daylight. Now, Daylight is a 3rd level spell that creates quite a large portion of light, but it's not daylight. So it doesn't give you any of the bonuses that actual daylight would give you against certain creatures.
Like vampires and stuff?
Like vampires and stuff like that. And it's 3rd level. But the only plus side that it's got is that it lasts for an hour. The fact of the matter is, though, there's lower level spells like Dark Vision, which I think is 2nd off the top of my head, that will accomplish the same thing. There's very little, in my experience playing anyway, very little reason to create such a massive source of light for an hour. You may as well just...
Can you move it?
So you choose that point, and it can't be moved unless you apply it to something that can be moved. So like the light cantrip, for example, which is frankly the better trade-off out of these two things. If you apply it to something that can move, then yes. So you can, for example, you can put it on an object that isn't being worn or carried. Let's say like a table or a lantern, which again will do exactly the same thing. And then you could move it. It's got a couple of pluses. So if it overlaps with an area of magical darkness, for example, that is equal or lower level than this was cast, it will dispel that magical darkness.
Okay.
That's pretty much the only plus that I think it's got. But the main bugbear for me, it's not daylight. That's the biggest bugbear for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah. So its ability to dispel darkness is obviously a bit of a plus in its favour. But yeah, as you say, you'd expect it to provide the bonuses that daylight would bring, and it doesn't do that. So yeah, that makes sense. And he suggested some good alternatives, such as a lantern, for goodness sake, which doesn't require any spell slots.
the light cantrip, dancing lights, which I think a lot of people sleep on. There's so many better options.
Yeah. And doesn't use it. It's a third level, which is obviously
it's a third level spell,
which is quite high. So just for casting some sort of source of light, definitely something to not lean on if you are. Is it a wizard one?
I think a few people, as cleric, I want to say off the top of my head, daylight. I imagine paladins have probably got access to it as well.
Yeah. But not until way later in their career.
Because with it being... It's actually on quite a few. I'm just checking it now just so that we can be absolutely clear. Cleric, druid, paladin, ranger, sorcerer.
Druid makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So not something to hurry and grab. There are better alternatives. I think we would probably agree on that one. Rick, your second worst one then.
Second worst, animal friendship.
Oh no, but we like having animals as friends.
We do. Unfortunately for the spell, it gives them a wisdom saving throw, and it makes them charmed by you, but then you can't talk to them. So when you've not cast Speak with Animals, because I believe it's concentration. Oh, it's not concentration, actually. It's got a duration of 24 hours.
Okay. So basically they're not hostile to you, but you can't actually be friends with them really because you're not actually talking to them. Like you can't really ask them to do stuff because they can't understand you either, can they?
No. So being charmed gives you advantage on charisma checks against the charmed creature, which animal handling isn't. It's wisdom based.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So basically, don't use this if you've got high animal handling because you can't use it. So what application has it really got then?
Well, it sounds nice, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
If you were to combo Speak with Animals and Animal Friendship, and you were actually having a conversation, your DM might call for a persuasion check rather than an animal handling check, in which case it might have some benefits, but you're probably going to achieve a very similar outcome by just using Speak with Animals.
Yeah. Correct. Instead of 2 first level spell slots, you could just use 1 and talk to it.
And it's only giving you advantage on the actual check anyway, isn't it? So
yeah, it charms them so they can't attack you.
Yeah.
Is it one of those ones where it says at the end, when this spell ends, the creature knows it has been charmed by you?
I hate that.
No,
I hate that.
It's not, luckily, not like Friends, the cantrip. But if you or one of your companions harms it, the spell ends. Which is fine, if you go and punch a wolf in the face, it's going to get cross.
So if you encounter
combat spell.
In combat, like someone's riding a walk or something, like you can probably stop them for a few turns at the very least. You can come back to them later on and just take them out of the equation just for a while.
Yes, you can stop them from attacking you.
Yeah. Okay. And the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Okay. I can see why maybe you've picked that one. That's two each on our worst spells. And I'll go with my final worst spell. And I would be very surprised if you didn't agree with this one. I think when we had our discussion prior to this podcast, it was one that was mentioned. And that is probably one of the worst spells in the game, True Strike.
Yeah.
You point a finger at a target. It's a concentration cantrip, and it gives you advantage on your attack roll, your first attack roll against that target, provided the spell hasn't ended. So if you cast it on someone and then get hit and lose concentration on it, you've just wasted a turn. It seems very strange to use a whole action just for advantage on the next go. I don't really...
It depends, again. So absolutely, I agree. This would have been on my list, except I knew it was on yours, right? I think there's a consensus amongst most people in the community that this is one of, if not the worst spells that's out there. There is certain circumstances, or one specific circumstance that I can think of where it could be particularly useful. And that would be if you were doing something like playing an assassin rogue and you wanted to get in on your sneak attack first round,
that's
possibly. But I mean, to give you maybe like the surprise advantage on that attack. But again, there's other ways of getting advantage, and having a cantrip for a rogue is going to have generally required either a little bit of multicasting or the use of a feat, like we've talked about before, where there's just much more value elsewhere.
It also has thematic components, so depending on your...
There'd have to be a lot of setup then, yeah.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
You couldn't do that stealthily, could you?
Though, so you could do it from stealth.
You could do it, okay. Yeah, I guess it's not
The problem with this one, though, is if you ask a lot of people, in my general opinion, the only way to make it better is to make it a bonus action rather than an action. But if you were to make it a bonus action, consistent advantage would be a little bit overpowered for a cantrip, because you just do bonus action, true strike, attack almost every turn until you run out of spell slots.
Yeah, I think if it was a plus, it would probably be better, because it's still concentration and it only lasts one round. So if you used your bonus action to add +2, used your concentration, and then attacked, I don't think that would be too bad.
But as written, it's not really that useful at the moment, is it? So,
no. Unless you're
so maybe in...
You could maybe add a build where you're Eldritch Knight or a Blade Singer, but then again, you'd have to build around it.
Well, one spell, yeah.
You may as well cast Firebolt. Attack twice.
Or Fireball. If you can cast Fireball, always cast Fireball.
There's a lot of love for Firebolt today, I've got to say. Top tier, S tier cantrip.
Definitely. I would totally agree with that. Okay, so yeah, True Strike is probably one of my worst as well. Let's go on to Martyn, and then we can discuss Rick's final worst spell.
So, I had to dredge a little bit for this one, because I was going to say True Strike myself, but I've picked one here which just kind of followed the theme of what I was saying before, and I have to kind of preface it by saying this actually is not a bad spell. It is a very good spell. It's just, it doesn't do what the name says, and it frustrates me no end. And that is Chill Touch, because it is neither cold damage nor has a touch range. It is necrotic damage at a distance.
120 feet. It's a massive
100.
range.
Actually, really good spell, but it's not cold, and you don't touch the person, and it frustrates me so much that I never use it.
It's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? It literally doesn't do what it's called. Interesting. I know for instance, Baldur's Gate 3, they did change the name of it, because obviously I think as the naming was suggested, it doesn't do what you would expect it to do. So I think they call it Bone Chill or something in Baldur's Gate 3, which makes a little bit more sense. Well, maybe not with the chill, but then obviously I think Rick, you've got something to talk about. So I know you use it quite a lot.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite spells to use. It's wonderful. Once you get over the fact that, it's necrotic damage at range, it's a fantastic spell. It stops enemies regaining health that you hit with it, which you can do again at 3rd level with Spirit Shroud.
Okay.
And then I don't think you can do it again with any other spell. So it's wonderful against regenerating enemies for a cantrip.
Would it work on someone like, say, for instance, we were playing the Strahd campaign, would it work on Strahd to stop him from regenerating?
Yeah.
He'd also have disadvantage on his attack roll.
Because he's undead.
Because
he's undead, yeah.
Spoilers. Anyone who hasn't played Curse of Strahd. Strahd is a
doubly
vampire.
useful.
Yeah, so actually, using that on Strahd is a really decent strategy, because I know him, and obviously like lots of big bosses tend to have a class feature or something that they can regenerate once per round. Or that would be that would be quite useful actually.
It is my absolute
I look forward
dream.
to seeing you use it.
It's my absolute dream to use it on one of the mythic dragons that came out in
Fizzbands, isn't
Fizzbands, Treasury of Dragons, because when you reduce them to 0 health, they regain 300 health, and I want to... I mean, obviously, it will be overruled by whoever DM's running it, because they want to have their cool monster. But I want to be able to go, no, actually, they can't regain that health because I chill touched them a round ago.
Fair play. Nice. So actually, there's a bit of overlap there, because I think with that being one of Martyn's worst spells, mainly for its naming convention, but it is also one of your favourite spells. That does kind of eliminate the need for us to talk about that later on. But Chill Touch, you love it or hate it, it has its uses for sure. Rick, your final worst spell in D&D.
So, pretty easy one. Everyone knows Blade Ward's a bad spell.
It's not great. Explain why.
It costs an action to give you resistance against bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage dealt by weapon attacks for 1 round.
Okay. But to only like that protection just for that round, then?
Yes. The thing that makes it bad in my eyes is, let me just ask you off the top of your head, when's the last time you fought a monster that did weapon attacks?
An orc, maybe, or a goblin?
Against an orc, yeah.
Yeah, but then when you get to higher levels, they don't really tend to use weapons, do they? They have like, if it's a big monster, they've got their own like limbs, like claws and bites, and yeah. So unless you're facing a humanoid,
famously, natural weapons are not weapons, even though they should be. But cast your action. If you are a Earth Ganassi, you can cast it as a bonus action a certain amount of times per day.
Okay.
It's saving grace.
That makes it more useful.
As a bonus action, it's quite good.
If you were just doing it just to, not take as much damage, would you not just disengage and go somewhere else, or I don't know, like?
Well, yeah, just move away.
Yeah, just get away from them, or just be a barbarian and rage. That'd be easier.
If you give up your whole action, you may as well just disengage and go somewhere else. Go stand behind your fighter.
Yeah.
Because no damage is better than half damage.
And also, I find in D&D that the best defense is a good offense. Take them down quicker, then you're not going to get hurt as much. So use your action to hit them instead, rather than play defensively. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see why you're not enjoying using that spell. Okie dokie. So that we've just discussed our worst ones that we just don't like using for various reasons. We've probably got a bit of time just to discuss also some of our favourites. So my absolute favourite is Healing Word. First level spell, which obviously can be upcast. It is a ranged healing attack. Not healing attack, but it's a healing spell that with range on it. And I've used this so many times, rather than having to run across the battlefield to stabilise someone or put a healing potion down their throat, I can just use a bonus action and a first level spell slot to get someone back up. I don't know, it seems to me like I can't really think of anything that provides that level of utility in terms of healing at such a low level spell.
It's the best thing about it. It being a bonus action is what makes it viable. Healing in general in D&D is rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. And that being a bonus action, like you say, in the circumstance that you just described, make it a really, really viable, usable spell.
Yeah,
it's not really the level of hit points you're really worried about. It just, even if it just gave them 1 hit point just to really get them back up, just to stabilise them and just wake them up, that would be fine.
Yeah, I know, Martyn, you have your own views on yo-yo healing from
I do.
our campaign, but if yo-yo healing is a thing, then Healing Word is
very
the best
video game-esque, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. There's no... We could go completely off on a tangent. There's no realism. Realism isn't there. You get knocked down and I get up again, like circumstance throughout any fight. But if that's what you're doing, this is the spell for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it only gets better when you get mass Healing Word, which, if you're looking at a TPK, that can change the battle pretty instantly. If you've cast Beacon of Hope before that, obviously they get max on that, but then I guess it's probably going to be, what is it, 1d? It's 1d4 plus your spellcasting modifier. So actually, even on mass Healing Word, it wouldn't necessarily give people loads of HP back, but could potentially stop you from getting a TPK if people manage to have an extra round of action. So that's one of my favourites. I use it a lot, and it's on quite a few spell lists. I believe it's on Bard, Cleric, and Druid, and also the Alchemist Artificer as well. Very, very useful, and one I love to use. So that's one of my favourites. Martyn, what is one of your favourite spells in D&D?
My absolute favourite spell, like my number one spell, is Simulacrum. It's a very high level spell that's on the wizard spell list, so it's 7th level. So you're going to have to be like a level 13 wizard or higher to have access to it. But it gives you the ability to create another you with all of your spell slots, and it doesn't regain spell slots, which is its downside, and it has quite a high monetary value in its material components. But aside from that, you've basically got 2 U's, which as a 13th level wizard is almost nuclear.
I mean, it's essentially a clone, and it can do absolutely everything that you can do, pretty much, can't it? So
Yep.
An absolutely fantastic spell for dungeon masters out there to have your big bad evil wizard cast.
Yeah.
I've never thought of doing that, actually. Now you've given me an idea of how to wind my players up even more. No. Okay, so would that... They don't share concentration. Do they share initiative, or do they have their own initiative?
So they share initiative with you. It goes on your turn.
Yeah.
Which is not a problem. It frankly could allow you to set up some absolutely insane kind of like combo moves with you and your doppelganger, your simulacrum even. But it can maintain concentration on its own. It can do everything that you can do except regain spell slots. So,
can you do anything to get it to regain spell slots?
No, you can do things like heal it in certain ways. So ultimately, it's a construct. So you wouldn't heal it in the same way you would an ally with like healing word or something. You have to use snow to heal it and other things because it's made out of snow and ice. But when it's run out of spell slots, it's still a person. So it could still do everything that's non-spelly, and it could still obviously use any of the cantrips and stuff like that. Ultimately, after a certain point, you're probably going to want to make another one. So you could just make another one eventually. You can only have one at a time, though.
Okay, so it's not like a Horcrux in Harry Potter where you can just keep... Yeah, okay.
Unfortunately not.
No, okay. But I was thinking, actually, you could, as a DM, you say, copy your big bad and have that against your players, but they don't know that they've done a simulacrum, and they think they've just killed the big bad, when actually they walk out after you've killed it and said, sorry, you're going to have to fight me again. That would be a right kick in the teeth, wouldn't it? So, interesting. I like it. That sounds fantastic. Definitely a worthy mention for your best spells. Just in terms of this segment, we're going to just round it off with Rick's final and favourite spell. Rick, what's your best?
Oh, I've got a few, but I love Bane. Bless and Bane are sort of opposite sides of the same coin. Bane, as a dungeon master, is fantastic because you cast it on your players, and that D4 does a lot of work. You've reduced attack rolls and saving throws by 1d4. It's concentration, charisma saving throw. The worst thing about it, or the best thing about it, depending on which side of the table you're sat on, is it applies to death saving throws as well.
Oh,
so
that is
it gives a real sense of urgency to, we need to take this guy out who's concentrating on this. If one of your players goes down and you bane them, you might get beaten up after the game in real life.
That's that DM versus player mentality right there.
Is that something you could... Because I know with sorcerers you can do like twin spell. Could you twin that onto people?
It affects 3 targets anyway.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. If, for instance, you cast that on players or on enemies prior to initiative being rolled, would it then affect their initiative as well?
Initiative isn't an attack roll or a saving throw, so I don't think.
It's not saving throw. It's a skill check, isn't it? Of course. Okay.
But I cast it quite a lot with my warlock. Probably not worth wasting your warlock spell slots on, but if you've got first level spell slots from, say, a multi-class, having Bane available,
or a feat or something.
Yeah, very good for the start of a fight. It just dampens the damage and makes them more susceptible to your guys' damage.
Amazing. Now, obviously, this is a topic which we can come back and revisit another time because there's so much that we can talk about and discuss. Look out if for a future podcast episode on this topic where we revisit this. But I would really like to just put our two experts' knowledges to the test. And we're going to have our very first quiz time now. So during this quiz time, I will be reading some spell descriptions, and it will be up to Martyn and Rick to be the first person to tell me what spell it is. Now, if they get the answer right, you'll hear this sound. And if they get the answer wrong, you'll hear this sound. It'll be the first to 5 points, and we're going to see who knows their stuff. Now, Martyn, I've got a little buzzer for you. This is your little buzzer. Which, if you like your Zelda, you'll know. And then Rick, you've got one of my favourite sound effects of all time. There we go. So, shall we play some quiz time?
Let's do this.
Lovely stuff. Right. Okay then. So, our first spell. You create a large hand of shimmering, translucent force.
Bigby's hand.
And you're absolutely right. It was Bigby's hand. Let's go on to our second question then. So it's 1-0 to you, Martyn. The second spell is... You blast the mind of a creature that you can see within range. Go for it, Martyn.
Dissonant Whispers?
No, that is incorrect. Rick, this spell is on offer for you. I'll carry on reading. Attempting to shatter its intellect and personality, the target takes 4d6 psychic and must make an intelligence saving throw. On a failed save, their intelligence charisma becomes 1.
Oh, it's Feeble Mind.
It's Feeble Mind, correct. Well done. That's 1 all.
Golf claps.
Good job.
I'm too competitive. I'm like, I will name this song in 3 words.
Lovely. So that's 1 all. First to 5. Next spell we have got is 8 multicoloured rays of light flash from your hand. Each. What was that, you, Rick? Go on, Rick.
It's Prismatic Spray.
It is Prismatic Spray. Well done. I think it's an 7th level spell. Very, very powerful spell. 10d fire, acid, whatever you choose. Pretty cool. I like it. Well done. That is 2-1 to Rick. Let's carry on with spell number 4. You touch a creature, end either one disease or one condition afflicting it. The condition can be blinded, deafened, paralysed, or poisoned. What do you think, Rick?
It's Lesser Restoration.
It's Lesser Restoration. Lovely job. That's 3-1 to Rick.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm expecting a big comeback here, Martyn. I'm expecting a big comeback. Spell number 5 is... you touch a creature. The target speed increases by 10 foot. Go on, Rick.
Longstrider.
That's Longstrider. Very nice. Well done. The score being 4-1. Rick to Martyn. You could win it with this next spell.
Do you feel a bit mean?
And looking at this spell, this is so up your alley. I'm really sorry, Martyn, but this could be Rick's. You return a dead creature to life with your touch, provided that it's not been dead longer than 10 days. Go for it, Martyn.
Raised dead.
It is Raised Dead. He's backing it 4-2. He's keeping it alive, taking it to the next spell. So that was spell 6. 4 points to 2. Come on, Rick, you can do this. Next one. It's actually a cantrip rather than a spell. The wood of a club or quarterstaff you are holding. Oh! I think that was just Rick. Rick, what do you think?
Shillelagh.
It is Shillelagh. Well done, Rick. Big hand of applause. 5 points to 2. You are this episode's quiz time winner. I have no prize, but you have mine and Martyn's.
Bragging rights. That's the prize.
Rights, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, well done. You both obviously know your spells quite well, but on this occasion, Rick just pipped Martyn to the post. And that is this week's quiz time. So, we're going to end our podcast this week, this episode, our very first one, with also our very first Reality Radar. Now, Reality Radar is where we discuss all the things going on in terms of geek news, whether that's in films, whether that's in TV, whether that's in video games and the like. So we've had a bit of discussion beforehand as to what we think's big at the moment. I think we're going to discuss the very first one on our list, which I believe was the Helldivers controversy. Now, I've only played Helldivers a little bit. It's obviously it's more of a PC game, and I'm more of a Mac gamer, but I have played it a bit. But Martyn or Rick, would either of you be happy to discuss what the actual issue that is going on with Helldivers is?
Rick, if you'd like to. I have not played. I'm aware of the issue, but you seem to be more aware. Sony
have muscled in and said that anyone playing needs to be on their PSN and needs to sign into it, which PlayStation Network, which I believe isn't available in quite a few countries.
The last time I read it was about 170, which, knowing there's just over 200 countries in the world doesn't leave many countries allowed to play it.
It just seems like a really self-destructive move. Like, when you've got the biggest games in the world, those things like Fortnite, for example, love it or hate it, it's one of the biggest games in the world that is completely cross-platform. Why would you make something where you're like, oh yeah, we're going to just restrict who can play this because we don't like money?
Yeah, they're putting a barrier to entry on the game, aren't they?
Do you think it might have been from like a management perspective so that they can manage the server load better? Because I imagine that's possibly got something to do with it, because obviously server loads when you are working like massively cross-platform and stuff like that without any form of restriction will put a really big strain on you. So possibly, but it just seems like the more intelligent thing to do would have just been to up your server count.
And Sony have got to have servers. I know it wasn't made by them; they just funded it, but it was.
So they've got a vested interest, haven't they? But I've seen on Steam a lot of people that have played hundreds of hours trying to petition to get refunds on a game which they can now not play if they are in certain countries, which it does seem a bit ridiculous. Like, so I would expect those refunds probably to be
for anyone listening to this on day of release, Steam have started doing refunds if you mention that the end user license changed and that you can no longer play it. Now they issue you a refund for the game.
Hello all, it's Mike here doing the edit, and since the time of the recording of this podcast, Sony have released a statement regarding this, and I quote, "Helldiver fans, we have received your feedback on the Helldiver 2 account linking update. The May 6 update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and also current players, will not be moving forward. So hopefully this should clear things up, and it's good to hear that Sony have listened to their fans. Anyway, back to the show." Let's look at our next story of this week, and that is probably the fact that Baldur's Gate 3, the creator of Baldur's Gate 3, should I say, Larian Studios, has confirmed that they are not going to be making the next Baldur's Gate 3, or the next Baldur's Gate, should I say, and are currently in development of 2 new games. One of them is rumoured to be a brand new IP. So one of them could be a new Divinity. I don't know if either of you, Rick or Martyn, have played Divinity. Yeah, fantastic game series. If you love Baldur's Gate 3 and haven't played Divinity, definitely go back and play it. But yeah, the fact that a new Divinity could be on the horizon, as well as a brand new IP from Larian, it has definitely got me salivating, because Baldur's Gate 3 was superb.
It makes me wonder why. It makes me wonder why. Like, I know that there's been a lot of negative media going on recently about things that have happened in kind of like the Hasbro Wizards world, and generally like gaming development in general, with a lot of people unfortunately having lost their jobs and stuff like that. And part of me wonders if maybe it's a Larian's reaction to the way that certain things have been handled, because this is, I think, arguably probably their most successful release. There's Divinity are fantastic games, like you were saying, but the marketing and the pure spread that this got, the scale has to be one of, if not the biggest thing that they've ever done. And to step away from that it makes me beg the question of what's happened.
What's going behind the scenes? Yeah, for sure.
I needed, but I did hear a news clip that basically Larian was saying they don't know anyone at Wizards of the Coast anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because of the amount of job losses and movements that have gone on.
Yeah, I know Sven Vinke, the studio director, is quite not loud, but he does speak his mind on things like X and stuff. And I think he has been quoted of saying that there is a lot of changes going on, and he doesn't like the way in which it's so capitalistic in terms of them trying to squeeze every penny out of their players, and obviously he's more there for the enjoyment of their players, so which is quite a noble thing, and I think quite a rare thing in the leadership of big companies nowadays. So
I think it's evident in their games as well, actually. So it makes sense that he said that, because the games feel that way.
Yeah, just the amount of choice and the replayability, and yeah. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing where Larian goes next with their future titles. So that's quite interesting to think about and look forward to. And we've probably got time to talk about one more thing, and it's probably going to be I'm going to put a hand over to you on this, Martyn, about Elden Ring. What's the sad news about Elden Ring?
There is no sad news about Elden Ring. I suppose it depends on your perspective. So we know Elden Ring, when it came out, obviously got Game of the Year, and for very good reason. A lot of FromSoft titles have expansions and DLCs, and it has been announced, of course, that Shadow of the Erdtree will be coming out, but that it will be the one and only DLC for Elden Ring, so we are not expecting anything more in the future. That should not, however, detract away from what should be fantastic. It's rumoured to be absolutely enormous in terms of DLC scale, potentially as big almost as the original game itself. So there's going to be absolutely enormous scope, and Elden Ring, like so many FromSoft games, have got such fantastic replayability that if you're not still playing Elden Ring once this DLC comes out, you could quite easily get another several months out of it. I personally am massively looking forward to it. My journey through those lands is not finished yet. I'm very much looking forward to it.
When's the expansion's release? Do you know?
It's expected to come on the 21st of June 2024.
Okay,
so not long to wait.
Very soon. We'll have to start getting good again.
Right, yeah. Not the kind of game you can just step back into after a 12-month hiatus.
I guess, like, in terms of size that you alluded to, is probably one of the reasons why maybe this could be one, because if they spent so much time making that, then they're probably quite exhausted in or looking ahead to future titles if so much development's gone into it.
Yeah, I'd say the future titles. So not many of the previous FromSoft games have had multiple DLCs. Some have. But generally, when you look at many of their games, all the way from Dark Souls through to Bloodborne and stuff like that, these games, they've had so much time and effort gone into them that they are, without being cheesy or cliche, they are artworks, and you don't just want to kind of keep painting over the corners just to try and make it a little bit better. So I feel like they've had a vision with it, and this just completes their vision.
It is nice as well to be able to pick up a game and not have to go, but there are these 14 DLCs that are £17 each or so if you're coming into it years later.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it on something like a GTA or a Fallout or a Skyrim perspective. When they release expansion packs, they're normally quite small. They normally haven't got much replayability. And they don't necessarily want me to spend the money and keep going back to that game. But I guess in some respects less is more in this respect. So that's quite exciting if you are an Elden Ring player. Looking forward to that. But sad that maybe that. Yeah, well, I guess it's not sad. You've made a very convincing argument for it to not be a sad thing, to be fair, Martyn.
Something to look forward to the next one. You know, like they'll do another game, whether that be another Dark Souls or some other Souls, like whatever comes out of FromSoft is almost always fantastic. So
amazing. Right, well, I think that's all we've got time for on Reality Radar this week. We will have other looks at news and also looking at releases as well in future episodes, but look to end the podcast here. This is our first one, so apologies for any small technical difficulties, and we're still trying to work everything out as to where we're going with our format, etc. But thank you for sticking with us to the end of this podcast if you have. And greatly appreciated. This will not be the last that you see of Martyn and Rick, I'm sure. A big thank you to both of you for helping me with your
Pleasure.
expertise. Thank you both
us.
for joining us. I'm looking forward to next time, us discussing some more spells. If you are listening to this on Spotify, be aware we are looking to also go on to other podcast providers very soon. So if you prefer Apple Podcasts, that will be something that you can look up in the next few weeks. And also, we have got a Discord, which will be on the Spotify description. Feel free to join us on there. We are looking to create a bit of a community on there, and there are channels in there where you can ask us questions for future pods, etc. So yeah, come join us on Discord. That'll be fantastic. And we look forward to having you join us on a podcast real soon. Our next podcast will be looking to release next Monday, as this is a podcast we will be releasing every Monday. It will all be about Fallout. So if you are a big Fallout fan, having watched the show or played in the games, then definitely join us on the next episode. But from me, Mike, and Martyn and Rick, we'll see you all very soon. Have a wicked week. Adios.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.